If you're a business owner or senior manager, you probably had more than enough about all the wonderful opportunities awaiting you in the era of digitalization.
Whether it is big data, cloud, data science, or whatever buzzword is currently trendy.
If you would like to hear someone dissecting these claims and showing you what it actually takes to improve business processes, you're in the right place.
This is Between Data and Risk, where we discuss real-life examples of what works and what doesn't in the world of business operations.
Hello, I'm your friendly neighborhood data guy, Dr. Marian Siwiak. Welcome to Between Data and Risk. Today we have a look at efficiency and sanity, and we have with us Arianna Cerrito of Startup and Rise and the London School of Economics, who agreed to share some of her experiences with us. Hello, Arianna.
Hi, how are you?
Yes, I'm great. Thank you very much. I'm pretty excited. I know that maybe I should be rather relaxed, knowing that you are helping people find a balance between work and life.
Correct.
But for those who don't know you yet, can you tell us what is Startup and Rise? What is that you do for London School of Economics and how the two connect together? I did some of academic work myself, and I'm always curious how people connect the academic work, which is often considered very theoretical and impractical, with running Startup and Rise. And if I'm not mistaken, you also run AC Luxury, which is another company.
Yeah, AC Luxury, basically Startup and Rise is a brand of AC Luxury. So that's how it works.
All right. So how does it work? How does it connect?
Well, first of all, thank you for having me. So I founded Startup and Rise after really decades that I've spent across large corporations and as well as SMEs. And I have seen, because I was leading cross-functional teams, big teams, global teams as well. So managing multiple departments and serving also as a board member in one of these SMEs. I have experienced the tensions that can rise within an organization. So that is what led me to start a Startup and Rise, which basically helps founders. So that's my aim, to help founders to build really high impact businesses, but without losing themselves. And the way that the two cross, so I work with the London School of Economics specifically for the Generate Accelerate program, which is for LSE alumni that decide to start up a business. And so on a voluntary basis, I support them to get clarity, get purpose, and get direction basically in their new venture. So that's how the two comes and combine together. But basically for me, it's building sustainable businesses that are sustained by sustained
Founders.
owners and leaders as well. So
it's a very interesting take, because I would say American style and this, image of a startupper is someone working, 80 hours a week or 120 hours a week. And, family always asks them when you will get the real job or when you will start, doing the real job. So there is this stark contrast. I know that startup environment in Europe and in States differs slightly. I've lived in the States for some time, and I live in Europe almost all my life. How do you find a balance between having to do everything almost by yourself and having time to, actually collect your thoughts from time to time, or, remember that work is not all there is in life?
Yeah. Well, I mean, let's say that, let's start from your statement, because you said, assumptions, let's say, like Americans are a little bit different from a European. So actually, I think around the world, everywhere, when you are a founder and you start something, you're so passionate about it that you tend to, put and funnel all your energies into what you're doing. So independently, whether you are American or you are European or you're Italian or you are, Polish or whatever, then you tend to actually work a lot on what you do. And the thing is that you get overwhelmed by the many, many hats that you need to wear. But the thing is that type of challenge starts when you start up the company, but also if it's not taken into consideration from the very beginning, then it will lead, even when you evolve in a larger company, in a larger organization, managing teams as well, managing different human people, and personalities, it becomes even more challenging. So it's something that you need to start thinking about from the very beginning, possibly, potentially, or many that I find, within my journey and along my journey, they have scaled businesses already. They are very, very successful, and yet they are super overwhelmed. They've lost their meaning, they've lost their sense of purpose. So how do you do that? You need to really have frameworks in place. You have to have structure, and at the same time you need to create a kind of a blueprint for what you do and for what a company and your business really represents. But at the same time you need to have priorities. So for instance, for me, the philosophy that I really take all my clients along the way and all the people that I support is fast pace where it really, really does matter, and slow down where it doesn't matter. So you need to create a framework whereby you really have the intention to prioritize really within the daily routine, but also in the long run and in the short term and in the medium term. So that's the way that I see it.
What we did as a company, we helped companies and scaling startups map out the processes, because in our experience, as long as you have 10, 12, 15 people, you can talk to everybody, you can know what people do, actually almost everyone, then you get another series and you grow to 30, 50 people, and all of a sudden the owner or the founder needs to delegate, needs to start to rely on processes rather than on intimate knowledge of every little aspect of every little project that they are running. Rarely, not to say never, we've been asked to map the processes of the startup that is, let's say, at this very early stage, and you help young people who are just starting the journey to already set up some sort of framework. So to be honest, for me, it's very interesting because, my experience is with the startups that have some way of working. People, pivoted once, twice, 3 times. They had to, change the structure, and they finally have something that works. What they need to do now is to describe what works and what doesn't, and apply the blueprint to, instead of one person, to a team. But how do you start? This is something for me completely unknown.
So first of all, let's consider that even when you are a small company and you think, I can, as you said, I've got 10, 12 people and I know exactly what they do. And from my point of view, this is not correct, because that falls into micromanaging. And this is not something that you want for yourself and for the people around you. So for me, it's like, first of all, you have to set a blueprint. So little by little, when you are on your own, just on your own, with no team whatsoever, then you know how, of course, things will evolve also in terms of processes. But at the beginning, you know what your values are of the company. What is your unique value proposition? What is the motivation that really you want to not only convey to yourself, but to the people around you and the people that come across your business? But at the same time, you want to start little by little to create the processes that you're saying, but with an open mind in terms of already starting to think of delegating strategically and effectively. So that means that when you will have 2, 3, 4, 5 people, you know that you can have some times where you share together what the goal is. It could be a goal in terms of the specific sales forecasts that you want to achieve, okay? Or it could be a more philosophical on the value of the company, on the motivation and all the rest. But you set them up and you know and you share with them so that they also know where all of you are heading. And then you give them not the tasks, but it's actually the project. They know, because you have people working with you, that means that they will do something that you either cannot do or you don't have the time to do. So you need to trust them. So you will give the project out, and the project starts with clarity. How do you read the project? What is it that you want them to build for you or to achieve for you? And so the clarity means that they know what your expectations are, and that becomes, from a relationship perspective, very smooth. but also from a practical perspective and impactful for their delivery, it becomes a better delivery for them as well, because they know what they need to deliver and how you expect them to deliver it. So that's why it needs to start from the very early stages. So it's a real practice there.
There are two issues that actually spark my curiosity. One is building trust, because delegation requires certain level of trust. And being a control freak myself, I admit that this is not the simplest thing.
No, I understand.
Especially when you encounter once or twice people who abuse the little trust that you're trying to build. Okay, there is another thought that I have, but it's for a longer discussion maybe. So let's start with trust. How do you build trust, but not everybody else around you in you? Because you as a founder, you invested your time, energy, you really want something to happen. But how do you build trust in people so you are capable of delegating?
Yeah, well, it's not easy. It's a real challenge. I think it's one of the really main challenges that founders have, to build trust and to delegate effectively. And I think that leads most of founders to have everything on their shoulders because they don't trust the other people. But the thing is, if I may say, you're paying them to be there. So trusting them means that you need to build a connection with them. So by building a connection, that doesn't mean that they need to be like you. Actually, majority of the times, the people that you want to be surrounded by are the people who challenge you, those who really spark with something that you didn't even know. And many times it happens because, there are very clever people around, the world, but it doesn't. Yeah, there are. But sometimes, you say, in one or two occasions, and sometimes even more, there are people that you then realize that you couldn't trust. But that you will see the early signals of that within that rapport and relationship that you need to build with the people that you are with. And once that the company evolves and your business evolves, and therefore you're scaling in terms of headcounts as well, then you will have the trusted people in the top line that are trusted to you, and they will convey exactly what you want. So it's a matter of really conveying the right energy and the clarity that I was telling you about.
So now the second topic, which actually more and more frequently pops up in my podcast. When you are talking about the values and the sense of purpose, from not often, but sometimes in the discussions with people, they got another serious. They diluted more of their shares. They have less and less to say in the company. And we are living in the age of shareholder capitalism. They realize that the only thing that matters to the board, for example, is increasing shareholder value. Yeah. Everything else is secondary, tertiary. I remember one episode when somebody was very vocal about the values of the company, and they asked for single example when the values actually made them reduce the profit. When they did something consistently, not as a greenwashing or a stunt, but consistently and then I've been lectured that the values are very important and they're delivering value and yada, yada, yada. But it was a shock even asking about putting values above the monetary value. How do you observe that? How does it impact people who started something because they believed? This is something that I also discussed a couple of times recently, is people start something because they believe, and then this belief is monetized.
So the thing is, the values are monetized. Values have a monetary rate, and that's because when you have strong values within the company, and values, let's not forget that values may change because the company will evolve, and probably the company will need to adapt to the current situation, whether the adaptability within the market and adaptability within, the several competitors that have just come up, and all many other challenges that a company can experience. But the values bring strong brand identity, and therefore brand identity equals equity, because you can have monetarized, shareholder value. Also, a brand equity means that the consumer or whatever client perspective and perception will be stronger. And because it's stronger, then that will bring equity to the business. So to me, values are as important as the shareholder, revenues and the increase of, revenues.
Market share. All right, let's get back to sanity part of the conversation. Somebody put a lot of work into their company. They slowly start making it work or not. And before they hit the wall, before they realize, I just don't want to be here anymore, just, I don't know, selling, quitting, whatever. What are the red flags they should consider or observe for? What are the early warning signs of upcoming identity crisis?
Yeah, there are identity crises. I think the main one is the loss of why. And that happens even when companies are already quite further ahead, but they still have an owner, a founder, and that is losing the why. So they really need to, and I'm actually doing a work with one of my clients right now on the why, because there's such a difference from when she, in this case, she started with her business, not in the UK, in another country. And she also then kicked off the business here in the UK. Along the way, even if the business is pretty thriving, but she has lost the why. So she doesn't have that energy. So that is one of the flags, and early, not very much early, because you can kind of detect them along the way. One is definitely the loss of energy, the loss of motivation, the loss of rhythm as well, where even when you achieve big wins, you just don't,
enjoy them.
You don't enjoy them anymore. So that's because you have diluted your why some along the way, and you have probably lost connection with yourself, first of all, even before the business. So you really need to step back and jot down. So I'm doing I work with on jotting down really what it means for you, the business, because also what happens is that these flags, you can also feel them around you with the team, because the team will not be motivated anymore because they do not know the real purpose of the business. And so they lose that connection as well.
It's an interesting point that you raised. It's more, I would say, from my corporate experience as well. But I sometimes encounter situations where, as you said, the why also evolves. And sometimes the team may have a bit different why from yourself. Is it a problem? Actually, should you impose your why on the team, or should you allow them to find motivation in whatever they want to believe in?
Well, I mean, the why is something personal, but then it translates in your company vision, your company goals, and your also unique value proposition. So, of course, if you want a team that runs with you, they need to embrace the why. It's, I think in a company, it's kind of a marriage, because anyway, you are marrying the people that you are working with, and they are really key to the business for it to evolve. So the why needs to really be that you, and together with your team, sharing together, brainstorming, you can decide that the why is a different one. But there's a why, which is the personal why, that then will convey into the professional business why. And that business why is the one that everyone needs to embrace. Once that you are convinced about that, and you know that that is the right direction, then you take everyone on board to do that. And when the why is not entirely aligned, then some conversations need to be, and you need to understand what is the friction. And sometimes that can evolve into a better relationship with that specific person, and also you can kind of tweak in a way their why to your why in a way, but you need to be clever to do that.
All right. So we said that the big red flag is when you no longer see why you are doing things.
Yeah.
But what are the main reasons behind getting so burned out that you no longer see why? It is interesting, especially in the context of what you said. You have successes,
Yeah.
and you're not enjoying them. It means it's not like you are just so beat down that you don't understand why you are, carrying this cross, or, maybe better, why are you rolling this stone up the hill like Sisyphus? So what are the reasons? If it's not, because I can understand if somebody has constant chain of failures, it's pretty obvious that they start asking themselves, is it worth it? What are the reasons in a situation when you actually achieve your goals, you translated your vision into projects, you have people, you are achieving your milestones, and still at one not so beautiful morning you wake up and say, actually, why should I go there? Why should I do that?
Let's say that many times the businesses, like it's ironic, but there are businesses that without structure, they succeed, let's say, in to even increasing revenues year by year. But the thing is that if there's no structure, then is when the founder has an overwhelming type of reaction. So that's one. So when there's no structure, because you can have teams really working really fast and everything, but not necessarily there's a structure that really kind of compounds everyone together. So that's one of the reasons of the root causes. Another one can be at the pace, which is really not sustainable. So you achieve, but actually you've got so many things to do and so many emails to read and so many projects and so many people to see and clients and whatever, that you are losing the why and you're losing, like your energy and everything, because it's actually a little bit too much for you. So you need to step back a little bit, or even more than a little bit. So that's another reason. So the losing the connection with the why, of course, is one of the things that we've already talked about. And the other one is when you already scale, you are scaling, but actually there's not a real strategy behind it. So again, there's a lack of also motivation and funneling all the energies together, because there's no real strategy. So you may have, for instance, sometimes it could be an authoritative type of founder, for instance, from a personality perspective, and therefore the team will deliver. But are they happy? And are you happy? No.
I guess if I would be authoritative personality, I would be happy that people do what I want them to do. But maybe that's my, assumption.
I think it would be really difficult, to be honest, because then you will have complaints from the team, even when they don't leave, but the team will be complaining, either from a micromanaging perspective or from, like personality real perspective. So not really. And that takes you in a place where you're not happy, even if you're authoritative as a, standpoint, but it's not really sustainable in the long term.
Is it, if we are talking about the personality type, is it even possible to change that? You realize, at some point you realize, my goodness, I'm a tyrant. My grandfather used to say, if 2 or 3 people tell you that you are drunk, you should go to bed, irrespectively if you drank something or not. So people are telling you, you're a tyrant. And you suddenly realize, yes, I am. Is it changeable?
I think if you want to change, yes, you can change, but it's really down to you. And it's not something like a miracle. It's something that you build little by little, step by step. So it's little shifts and tweaks in your daily way of working and of even managing yourself, of living your life. You really need to feel it, that you really want to change, evolve. More than change is evolving, like in a positive way. So I think if you really want to,
You want to be a dictator in white gloves all of a sudden.
I mean, I think like it's a difficult one. Dictators, it's better not to talk about that. But I think there are a lot of personality founders. Many times they are like very, very challenging, and some of them have really strong personalities. So of course, it's not always easy to manage that and to rapport yourself to them. But I think when in my case, what I do, I normally challenge them, and challenging them helps a lot in like it's a wide open perspective that they get, and that I think is quite key in my case in the way that I work.
American, I would say, guests, we often discuss the difference between working in the business and working on the business. Is it something that resonates with you? Is it something that how would you define when you need to stop doing everything in the company and start to look, as you said, burnout comes from lack of strategy, lack of structure, framework. So you no longer do the work, I don't know, sales development or whatever. You start working on the business. You start shaping the business itself, making sure that all the parts are, working as one machine. But on a, I would say, mental and emotional level, how do you convince people to this change?
You convince people by keeping the connection. Of course, it's not, you can't be completely disconnected from the company that you're building, because otherwise, what's the point of being there in the first place? Also, like the people, how they are working with you, they're working with you and for you in a way, and for your business, and therefore they want to kind of see you in a way, but they want to make sure that you listen to them, the trust that we were talking about, and it's all about still keeping the connection. So if you're too disconnected and you look at the top line, which is absolutely fine, and you look at anything and you focus on the investment side only, for instance, or on the strategic side only, you need to share that. You need to share that vision. You need to share sometimes you need to also share your vulnerability. So you do, because that will be seen as you are a human being. You're not like a machine. You're not like, many founders, as I said, they've got really strong personalities. And I have to say that independently of my experience, but I think that many also super successful founders are neurodiverse. So it's difficult to keep, that connection. But it's important to have a connection still with your team. And this is possible even if your team's is huge and enormous. So again, it's a matter of structure. So you will have some sharing moments. There will be some touch points where you keep on, whether it's you or someone else for you. But if it's not you, you will have anyway the first line working with you, and you can share with them whatever you want for the company to achieve, both from a practical level, but also from an emotional level, considering, the values and all the rest. So that's the motive, so that will, as a domino effect, will go down to the bottom. So that to me is an important and key factor in still having that sharing with the people that work with you, even if you're on the top line only.
What I understood, you shouldn't be top line only. You shouldn't only look at the KPIs. You should also look at the emotional architecture.
Yeah, absolutely.
I would say,
yeah.
In data, when it's for cooperation, but when we are building the data mesh here and there, we speak about change from technical architecture to socio-technical architecture. The structure of the teams should reflect the work, and the teams should work well together, and their completeness, also emotional, should be a factor in designing the whole architecture. But what you said, actually, we work a lot with remote workers. We also help companies, find remote workers. And I'm really curious about what you said, this deep connection that you want to build in the company. On the other hand, is something that I personally, but I might be projecting, I personally hate, is the obligation to be in the office. In your opinion, remote work, hybrid, return to office? Because I think that COVID showed that a lot of reasons to be in the office are directly linked to micromanaging and power play of middle management. I might be brutal, but well, hey ho, that's my opinion. But I open it for a discussion. Maybe I'm wrong.
Well, it can be the case. Again, it depends on the culture of the company. The micromanaging and therefore having people under your control. It can be really because the culture is not a positive culture within the business. So I think, a hybrid or no hybrid, or working from home or working from the office, I really think it depends on the type of business that you run. So even when, though, there are certain roles that can be very well delivered being on, working from home, I believe that a little bit of sharing together, like in-person meetings, are really, really key. So I'm not saying that people need to work from the office every day. And I think that wouldn't be the best balance for both, the owner or, the top management and all the other people working within the company. I think that a balance is good for from a health perspective, because there's a lot of, the fact of working from home all the time has different challenges. One of them is you will start being very isolated, even when all of the other people in your other colleagues work from home. The isolation bit, we are social animals at the end of the day. And I think that energy will be different when you are in either an office space or, to the park, going to the park together with other people that are also your colleague, because you bond on a different level. So I think a little bit of that needs to be still present. And then depending on the type of organization, there will be people that maybe work from home all the time. But then again, it's a little bit unhealthy because your home is your home. So how many people do have actually a space where they then, close the door and they leave the rest of the home as a home and they can rest? It's really a difficult balance. So, because many don't have that. And we have seen during COVID how that was so challenging for some people. And for instance, during COVID, I was working really a lot. I was in a situation opposite to many people that didn't need to work during COVID because, everything was closed. In my case, we had where I was working, we had to ramp up the digital and online business because, of course, otherwise the company would have gone not busted, but of course it would have been a little bit of a critical situation. And therefore I was really working a lot. And my friends were baking and they were, talking to their kids and all the rest. And I was working, and it's really, really hard, it's not healthy. So the first thing that I wanted when COVID was the lockdown was lifted was to have 3 days, and this is what we agreed, 3 days in the office and 2 days working from home. But that was the framework that was working at the time for that specific company. And for me, it was heaven, because I could have brainstorming with all the teams, and it's much quicker to get information from one another from different departments as well. So it's very fast. It's much more. It's clearer in the way that you communicate. But again, it doesn't mean that it needs to be either working from home 100% or working from the office 100%. I think that finding those touch points to, again, the connection, it is really key for both employer and employees.
All right. Some of our people are flying to London every month, and sometimes they say it's okay. Sometimes they say it's sometimes just for the sake of coming. But I don't know. I'm a loner. I'm a data guy. I'm happy when I have my computer.
But again, you say sometimes it's for the sake of coming because the culture is not correct. That's the thing. Because the culture should be, I go to the office because there's an added value to go to the office, because I'm going to do something that normally, if I am behind a screen and I have a Zoom call with my teammates, is not going to be the same, because I'm going to do something else with them when we are like a brainstorming, whatever it is, but it's something that adds value to the working from home. And then in that perspective, then you see that it's actually different from working from home.
For sure it is. But as you said, it's very reliant on the culture and the people who are actually running the company. If they really know how to add value and how to utilize this different energy, and if they can actually bring their own energy instead of dumping everybody down, then we are coming back. If they are not burnt out, and they have this why, then they can infect others with enthusiasm.
Yeah.
Can you tell us if somebody would like to I don't know, learn more about what you do and to get in touch, maybe use your services, hopefully, where they should reach out? Is your LinkedIn your best, or?
Well, I've got the website for Startup and Rise, so it's startupandrise.com. So it's just very simple, and they can connect with me there, or they can find me on LinkedIn as well as Arianna Cerrito, and they can connect me there as well. So that's
I will link it all in the description of the episode, so if somebody will come to us, they will be able to just click, they will not have to hopefully search for it. Thank you very much, Arianna. It was really enlightening and relaxing. And as we always say, let's hope it was of use to someone.